DDR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Accra, 7 p.m. in Abuja and Porto Novo. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Coming up in the news.
I, Paul Bafuboni,
do in the name of the Almighty God swear.
Do in the name of
That Ghana's President Mahama swearing in Justice Paul Bafuboni as Ghana's new Chief Justice while committing to upholding judicial independence.
Independent judiciary is not a favor to the courts. It is a constitutional necessity and a protection for every citizen, including the president.
Mali's opposition groups urge citizens to demand an end to the military rule. Human rights groups in Senegal, including Amnesty International, demand justice for missing gendarmes.
The Senegalese justice system must pursue a thorough investigation to determine whether this person acted independently.
Meanwhile, Africa is set to lose 50 to 80 billion US dollars annually from visa and border restrictions. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. Newslink begins in the central region, particularly in Mali, where opposition groups are urging citizens to demand an end to the current military rule, championed by former Justice Minister Mamadou Ismaila Konate and former Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research Mutanga Tao. Their latest call comes as the country faces worsening fuel shortage triggered by recent attacks on tanker trucks responsible for supplying petroleum products to Bamako, the capital. The security situation has sharply deteriorated in recent months, deepening frustrations among residents and political actors alike. Meanwhile, the transitional authorities are appealing for calm, urging Malians to remain resilient and continue supporting the state despite the mounting challenges. More details in this report with Abdullahi Hassan.
For opponents of Mali's military transition, most of whom now live in exile, the message is clear. It is time for citizens to wake up. In a series of statements on social media and international press, they are urging Malians to push back against what they describe as a regime using insecurity as a pretext to prolong its stay in power. Former Justice Minister Mamadou Ismaila Konate called on Malians to, I quote, open their eyes, warning that despite government assurances, extremist violence continues to spread across the country. Another prominent voice, former Minister Mutanga Tao, who remains in Mali, is urging the population to face reality head-on. He cautions that endless calls for resilience could slip into resignation, which he says risks sparking revolt and ultimately repression. Tao is advocating for unity and renewed dialogue with Malian armed groups as a pathway out of the crisis, arguing that relying solely on military operations is no longer viable. The transitional authorities, however, have pushed back. They are calling on citizens to stand behind the current leadership as it confronts multiple national challenges. Earlier this month, Transitional President General Simi Goita appealed for unity, urging Malians to avoid panic and division.
Abdullahi Hassan filed that report. Still in the Central Sahel region, this time around focusing on Niger, the African Development Bank AFDB has signed financing agreement worth 98.7 billion CFA francs to improve access to drinking water and sanitation in the Zender region located in the southeast of the country. The agreement was signed by the Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Al-Lamin Zain and AFDB country representative Mamadou Tangara. The funding is expected to bring much-needed relief to residents of Zender who have long faced persistent challenges in accessing clean water and adequate sanitation. Sankole Janko tells us more in this report.
The project includes the connection of 30 boreholes, the construction of water storage infrastructure, including 3,000 cubic meter reservoir and 12,000 social water connections. It will cover the city of Zinda and 14 surrounding villages. The project is financed by the African Development Bank for an amount of approximately 99 billion CFA francs, according to Mamadou Tangara, the AFDB's country representative in Niger.
The water and sanitation sector occupies a central place in the African Development Bank's assistance strategy for Niger. Specifically, the project falls on a pillar 2 of the country's strategy paper, which aims to promote resilient agricultural development for strong, inclusive, and sustainable growth. It emphasizes the mobilization and efficient use of water resources to enhance climate resilience.
The financing agreement was signed by Niger's Prime Minister, Mahaman Lamine Zain. According to the head of government, this project will help ensure access to clean drinking water for the people of Zinda and neighboring communities.
The overarching goal of this project is to sustainably improve the living conditions of the people of Zinda, a region marked by distinct geological characteristics and increasing demographic pressure, compounded by the effects of climate change. The project responds to a critical and long-standing need for the people of Zinda and surrounding communities who have endured chronic water shortages for many years.
According to the AFDB, this initiative is part of its support strategy for the water, sanitation, and climate resilience sectors in Niger. With this new financing, the bank's total portfolio in the country now stands at nearly 700 billion CFA francs.
And that's Niamey's correspondent Mutala Zubairu's report presented by Sankule Janko. In Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama has just sworn in Justice Paul Bafuboni as the country's next Chief Justice. Justice Paul Bafuboni became acting Chief Justice in April after the suspension of Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono, swearing in the 68-year-old Chief Justice at the Jubilee House today. President Mahama pledged to uphold judicial independence as it is a bedrock for the growth of democracy. Here is President John Dramani Mahama.
Our Constitution enshrines the principle that the courts, as outlined in Article 125, shall administer justice in the name of the Republic of Ghana, guided by the principles of freedom, equality, probity, and accountability. And so as Chief Justice, you are the first guardian of these principles within the judicial arm. Judicial independence and separation of powers. The strength of our democracy depends on a delicate yet essential balance of powers among the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Each branch is supposed to operate independently, and yet they have to collaborate in order to serve the common good. And so today, as President, I pledge my unwavering commitment to the independence of the judiciary. And I wish to say that an independent judiciary is not a favor to the courts. It is a constitutional necessity and a protection for every citizen, including the President. We must therefore jealously safeguard the institutional, financial, and administrative autonomy of our courts. Decisions of our courts, whether we agree or not, must be respected and enforced. This is the bedrock of the rule of law. One of your most urgent tasks is to strengthen integrity within the judiciary. Our citizens must know and feel that justice in Ghana is not for sale, and that no one, regardless of their power or status, is too powerful or too humble to be held accountable under the law.
And that's Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Back here in Senegal, the mysterious disappearance of two gendarmes in November 2022 has sent shockwaves across the country. While the body of Obe Sambo was discovered at sea a few days later, the circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. In view of this, several human rights organizations gathered in Dakar for a march to say no to forgetting about the issue while demanding that justice be served. Augustin Colley reports.
3 years after the disappearance of the two gendarmes, their families and several human rights organizations came together to renew their call for justice. A mass and a march were held Sunday in Dakar to pay tribute to Fubert Sambou and Didier Badji. Here is Executive Director of Amnesty International Senegal, Sedi Gassama.
We reaffirm our unwavering commitment to stand with the families of Fulbe Sambou and Chief Warrant Officer Didier Badji in their quest for truth and justice. The Senegalese judiciary has been unable to clearly explain what happened to them or determine their fate. One person has been charged, but it remains insufficient. Regardless of the individual's reputation, it is clear that they could not have acted alone in taking the lives of Didier Badji and Fulbe Sambou.
On the eve of the march, Jerome Banjake, a security officer with the Alliance for the Republic, APR, the party of former President Macky Sall, was formally charged. According to Sedi Gassama, the judiciary must conduct a thorough and transparent investigation to identify any possible masterminds behind the case.
The Senegalese justice system must pursue a thorough investigation to determine whether this person acted independently or under the direction of others. If they were accomplices or masterminds, justice must uncover and hold them accountable.
A new mobilization is planned for Tuesday, marking the anniversary of the disappearance of Didier Badji and Fulbert Sambou. Their families, relatives, and human rights organizations say they will maintain pressure on authorities until the truth is uncovered and justice is served.
Demba Ama Ann's report presented by Augustin Colley.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let me take you to Benin, where the country's recent constitutional reform has ignited widespread debate, introducing two major institutional changes: the creation of a Senate and the extension of both presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 to 7 years. The reform has drawn mixed reactions from citizens, civil society, and political actors alike, while with some questioning the timing, intent, and the implications of Benin's democracy. Nadi Tete reports.
Among the key amendments is a clause stating that any member of parliament who resigns from their political party will automatically lose their seat. Another controversial measure introduces a moratorium on political activities beginning immediately after the official announcement of presidential election results and lasting until 12 months before the next elections. These provisions have fueled sharp debate across the political landscape, but public opinion remains divided. While some citizens welcome the reform as a means to strengthen governance stability, others see it as democratic regression.
The problems we are facing today have nothing to do with the constitutional reform. There is no urgency whatsoever. Even if the constitution were to be revised, it should not be done by the current president. Why didn't he consider reducing his powers when he first took office? And now, as he prepares to hand over power to someone else, he suddenly wants to limit those powers. Clearly, something isn't right.
Within civil society, reactions are similarly mixed. Critics argue that the reform could concentrate power and weaken accountability, while others call for constructive dialogue to ensure that institutional changes genuinely serve democratic progress. Here is a civil society actor, Gilles Yabi.
Here in Wati, we have often proposed the creation of councils of elders that could serve as advisory and mediating institutions. It is crucial that we engage in open dialogue if we truly want to establish meaningful and constructive institutional reforms.
On the political front, the opposition has condemned the reform as fraudulent and is demanding the annulment of the vote. The ruling majority, however, defends the amendment, insisting that its adoption is the result of extensive consultations and political consensus reached behind the scenes.
Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sole's report and presented by Na Dede Tete. Let me take you to Nigeria for some sad development as bandits have abducted 25 students from the Government Girls Comprehensive Senior Secondary School in Maga, Kebbi State. This was reviewed by the Kebbi State Police Public Relations Officer, CSP Nafui Abubakar. The attack happened on Sunday night when armed men stormed the school in Danko Wasagu local government area. During the raid, the gunmen killed the school's vice principal, Malam Hassan Makuku, before whisking away the students. Witnesses say the attackers met no resistance and operated freely, plunging the entire community into a state of panic. Still in Nigeria, a mine operation in Gwaza local government area of Borno State has killed one person and injured several others. Local authorities say the device was planted by insurgents along the routes used by farmers. Our correspondent Usman Omar reports.
A local hunter was killed and several people injured on Sunday when a buried explosive device detonated along a farming path in Goza. Security sources say the IED was likely planted by Boko Haram or ISWAP militants who remain active in the area. The victims were quickly evacuated to Goza General Hospital before those with serious injuries were transferred to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital for further treatment. The blast adds to a rising number of similar incidents across Borno and communities within the Lake Chad Basin. In recent months, explosions in Damboa, Ngala, and border settlements near Cameroon have highlighted the continuous use of improvised explosive devices by insurgent groups targeting civilian movements. Analysts warn that these attacks are worsening insecurity for rural families whose livelihoods depend on farming and trading along the very routes now considered unsafe. The renewed IED threat is also complicating humanitarian access and heightening concerns about food insecurity in communities facing displacement and climate stress. For Nigeria and neighboring Niger, Chad and Cameroon, the Goza explosion is another reminder of the challenges posed by insurgent cells operating across porous borders. While armed forces maintain patrols, buried explosives continue to endanger civilians. Local leaders are calling for intensified clearance operations, stronger community reporting systems, and sustained security presence to prevent further casualties. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. We're also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here's a reminder of our top stories. President Mahama swears in Justice Paul Bafo-Boni as Ghana's new Chief Justice while committing to uphold judicial independence. Mali's opposition groups urge citizens to demand an end to the military transition. And human rights groups in Senegal, including Amnesty International, demand justice for missing gendarmes. And still ahead in the news, I will tell you how Africa is set to lose about 50 to 80 billion US dollars annually from visa and border restrictions. We do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now let's do some economic related matters on the continent, because Africa is estimated to lose between 50 to 80 billion US dollars annually as a result of stringent visa and border restrictions. While this figure is often linked to illicit financial flow, it also reflects the broader economic costs of limited mobility, affecting trade, tourism, investment, and free movement of labor across the continent. As Emo Edit reports, these restrictions significantly undermine intra-African trade by increasing the cost and time required for goods to move between countries, ultimately slowing progress towards a more integrated and comprehensive continental markets.
Business groups report that companies seeking to operate across borders face long visa processing times, unpredictable entry requirements, and high permit fees. For small and medium-sized enterprises, these delays often translate into cancelled business meetings, missed trade fairs, and reduced market access. Lulu Hangala Wood is an entrepreneur.
And there's so many opportunities. All these things require us to move really quickly, but instead we're held back by long visa processes, unpredictable approvals, and permits that make planning almost impossible at times.
According to trade analyst William Kumwembe, the impact is most visible in sectors that rely heavily on mobility, including agriculture.
Because there is that element of protectionism, there has to be a modality, there has to be a way which would be in quotes accommodative.
Stakeholders said it just concluded the high-level Borderless Africa Forum organized by Africans Rising in Addis Ababa. The Ethiopian capital wants African governments to urgently harmonize visa policy policies, streamline border procedures, and ensure the full implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. After Dr. Robert Afriye is Ghana's ambassador to Ethiopia and the permanent representative to the African Union.
Some of the challenges, of course, are obvious. They are concerns. There could be arguments for it or against it, but concerns about security, about labor, about societal concerns. There may be challenges as part of the lot of humanity to also find solutions to problems.
As discussions on a borderless Africa continue, analysts say easing travel for business people remains one of the most urgent steps needed to unlock economic growth and ensure the continent benefits fully from regional integration efforts.
Imo Edit filed that report. Now let me take you to the Gambia, where Female Lawyers Association has begun a nationwide community engagement campaign to strengthen women's access to justice and increase their participation in politics. The initiative opened in Brikama, West Coast region, where women from across the political spectrum gathered to discuss the barriers limiting their involvement in leadership. WAD House Banjo correspondent Sandona Mendy has the rest of the story.
More than 100 women turned up for the launch in Brikama, a forum designed to shine a light on the cultural and structural hurdles that continue to restrict women's participation in public life. President of the Female Lawyers Association of the Gambia, Ananjai, told participants that the engagements are meant to create safe and open discussions around the challenges that hold women back from fully taking part in decision-making roles.
It is our responsibility to promote women political participation. So it's a national development priority that strengthens our democracy and governance. We all know that women are leaders every day, from our mothers to the people in the offices to the farmers. In the community, we play a big role.
She said that despite some progress over the years, many women still face obstacles shaped by social norms, political party structures, and limited access to legal assistance. Participant Mariama Kamara described women's involvement in decision-making as essential, adding that their representation remains worryingly low.
We are less represented. If you can know the population of the Gambia, we say we are like half of the population of the Gambia, but you go to the National Assembly, you see how underrepresented we are.
The association plans to extend the campaign across the country in the coming months, with officials saying the timing is crucial as the Gambia heads towards the 2026 election. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdona Mendy reporting from Banjul.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview this evening, let's turn attention to Benin, where the country's recent constitutional reform has ignited widespread debate following the introduction of two major institutional changes: the creation of a Senate and the extension of both presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 to 7 years. The reform has drawn mixed reactions from citizens, civil society organizations, and political actors alike, with some questioning the timing, intent, and implications for Benin's democracy. For more on this development, we are joined by David Morgan Asogba Metonji, a Beninese consultant in geopolitics.
Well, this is a very, let's say, critical question, and most of the observers are still trying to figure out the in-depth reason that might have motivated the parliamentaries to move forward with this initiative. It appears very clearly that the process was very fast. We did not witness any debate at the parliamentary house, and nobody really have a clear idea of what the discussion have been, what have been the motivations in a very profound way of each initiator and each member of parliament that voted for this change of constitution.
What does Benin's constitution says with regards to amendments, particularly ahead of elections?
You know, the Benin constitution does not specify any period of amendment, especially ahead of the constitution. We know there is a general rule that has been adopted when it comes to West Africa bodies, especially the ECOWAS additional protocol that indicates that it is not recommended for any of the state belonging to this institutional body to amend the constitution within a period of 6 months ahead of elections. Mm-hmm. But what is happening right here does not, when you look at it in depth, affect the electoral process immediately or directly. When it comes to elections, we have a law that has already clarified the way things should go. So when it comes to election, there is no issue. Mm-hmm. But the amendment that occurred and that is being on the floor it has to do mostly with the way the country will definitely work from 2026 because there are still some steps that have to be met for everything to be enforceable at the very moment where those elements are done.
Sir, does the timing of this constitutional reform pose any threat or risk ahead of the election? If yes, then what are those risks?
There is no clear threat to the elections because the law has not actually affected directly the process when it comes to election. But when it comes to public trust, we might have issue, and that issue is not directly linked to the change of the constitution, but it is linked to the idea of figuring out whether the people are really into this dynamic of change that is occurring. If the member of parliament have definitely expressed the will of the people.
How might the creation of a Senate affect Benin's current balance of power and legislative process?
This is one of the interesting aspects of the change ongoing. And this Senate is obviously one of a kind because it has nothing to do with members that have been elected directly by the people. It is an institution that comes to play a role of stability if we have to listen to what has been explained as argument backing up this decision. This is a very different type of Senate.
David Morgan Asogba Metonji is a Beninese consultant in geopolitics. And in sports tonight, the green, white and green-colored nation, Nigeria, almost made it to the World Cup. And Augustine Colley will tell us why they didn't make it to the World Cup. Augustine?
Indeed. Thanks, Grace. Nigeria's bid for the 2026 FIFA World Cup ended on Sunday after a penalty shootout defeat to DR Congo in the African playoffs final in Rabat, Morocco. The match finished 1-1 draw at extra time with Frank Oyika scoring early for the Super Eagles before DR Congo rallied and forced to penalties. The Leopards edged the shootout 4-3 to advance to the next year's intercontinental playoffs. Well, just before we go to the next one, it means that Africa now depends on DR Congo
to have to add up to the already qualified nations at the World Cup.
Yes, especially from Africa. But they will have to face other continental teams from South America,
Europe,
and some part of Europe, of course, to ensure that only one team qualifies to add them to the already qualifying teams. But elsewhere, CAF has unveiled the 2025 CAF Awards shortlist ahead of the November 19 ceremony, confirming Mohamed Salah, Victor Osimhen, and Achraf Hakimi as the final three contenders for the Men's Player of the Year. CAF also released the shortlist for Women's Player of the Year, namely Moroccan duo of Gislan Chibak and Sana Musudi, as well as Rashidat Ajibadi of Nigeria, making the final cut. Meanwhile, CAF has revealed Benin's music icon Angelique Kidjo and Wallace as the host of the prestigious awards. Uganda and Burkina Faso produced two of the biggest shocks yet at the FIFA Under-17 World Cup Qatar 2025 on Saturday, stoning Senegal and defending champions Germany to back their places in the round of 16. Those are the latest in the world of sports.
Augustine, thank you very much for that. And with that, we've come to the end of this evening's edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Juve for the technical assistance. I am Christopher Ticho. Good evening and enjoy the rest of our broadcasts.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org.
For any cackle, a giggle. Or a baby's laugh. Whatever the type of laughter.
WADR 94.9 FM is for you.
It's for you.